So hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about how you can use your social media more effectively, or why we should all take a look at how we're using our social media channels and whether we're broadcasting more than we're engaging. So I'm Nicola Barrett, I am the Tech Champion for Social Media at the Digital Culture Network. If you don't know about the Digital Culture Network but have found your way here, I'll just give you a little overview. So we're a group of digital specialists and we're here to support arts marketing in England. We're funded by Arts Council England, and so we can provide free support and advice and training for organisations and individuals working in the creative and cultural sector. So some of what we offer are articles, like you can see here from our website, webinars like this one, and also we have lots of one-to-one support. So you can book in a one-to-one session with me, it's free, and we can have a look at your social media and you can ask any questions. So James will pop that link into the chat that's for you to book a session in with me. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering today. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between broadcasting and engagement. Then we're going to look at how focusing on engagement can help you to get an algorithm boost, to achieve your digital objectives, enhance your brand's reputation, make communication a two-way street, and develop a relationship with your audiences. And then at the end, we'll finish up with the Q&A. So like James said, put any questions in the Q&A. Okay, so we're going to start off with a poll. One sec while I launch the poll. Here we go. Okay, so what's the main objective for your social media? Is it driving traffic to your website, growing your brand's awareness, speaking with your audience, or selling tickets or products? So I can see some of you have started already. Do fill in the poll for me. It's not a trick, I promise. I'm just curious as to how you're mostly using your social media at the moment. I'll give you a few more seconds just in case anybody's only just got the poll up on their screen. Okay. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Let's have a look. So, interesting, most of you, or the majority, were using it for growing brand awareness and speaking with your audience. Really good to see those two up there. Selling tickets and products, obviously a really big factor, so we can look at that in a bit, and driving traffic to your website comes in last, which is interesting to see. That's quite encouraging. Okay. So, okay, what do I mean by broadcasting? So I want you to picture this scene, okay? You're at a party and there are some people there that you know, some people you don't. Everybody's chatting, mingling, you're having conversation with people, you're looking around thinking, oh, I might go and chat to them, having a pretty good time. There's like this general hubbub. But over in the corner, there's a guy with a megaphone and he's not talking to anyone directly, but every few minutes he's shouting into the megaphone and he's shouting things like, don't miss our show next week, tickets are on sale now. Or visit our website, www.verynoisyman.com. Or new blog post up on why we're brilliant, check it out. And whenever anybody goes to speak to him, he just completely ignores them or maybe gives them a thumbs up. So people are starting to avoid this guy. They're moving into other rooms to get away from him. They're just giving him a bit of a wide berth. I want you to think about your organisation and how you're using social media. How much time at the party are you chatting to others? Are you moving around to speak to different groups? How often are you thinking this would be a fun conversation starter? And how often are you just shouting with the megaphone? So by broadcasting, I'm talking about using social media to tell people something you want them to do without any other engagement. So you're not joining in conversations, you're not seeing what other people are talking about, what's important to them, trends that are happening, noticing anything else happening online. You're just focused in on what you want the audience to do. Most of the time when we're broadcasting, we're putting out links for people to click on, for people to reserve tickets, for instance, and for people to visit your website or look at this new blog post that you've done. So why should we focus on engagement? By engaging, I'm talking about using your social platform for conversations. Now, I know from talking to people in the arts and culture sector that so many of you are really short on time and really short on resources. And often the easiest thing to do with your social media is to just do a little quick intro, explain what the link is about, put them out to your website. Your website's got the information. If they just go there, they'll find out. And I also know, as we saw in the poll, a big chunk of you are having to use social media to drive traffic to your bookings. And that's the priority, is to get bookings onto events. So these are obviously really important metrics for your organisation to show that you're meeting your objectives. But today I want us to look at how we can use engagement instead to actually help with these things and make social media a bit more of a resource for your organisation. So the first reason to focus on engagement is because the algorithm prefers it. So we're going to look at this concept of zero-click content. Okay, so I want you to think about posts with a link in as click content because you want them to click on the link. So zero-click content is when a social media post is designed just to live on that platform. It's often called native content. So it's just to keep people there. It's not to take them away to your website. It gives them all of the info they need right there. So some examples of zero-click content could be a video, a status update, or sometimes I'll call it a plain text update because it doesn't have a link or an image or anything else. It's just text. An image or a carousel of images, or a poll. Some platforms only have zero-click content by their nature. So for instance, Instagram and TikTok, you can put a link into your post caption, but it's like a dead link. You can't click on it. And also you can't copy and paste it. So you're expecting the person to kind of type it out by hand, which the audience isn't really going to do. So we're going to have a look at how the different platforms prioritize zero-click content. So this is from an article by a company called SparkToro, and it's all about zero-click content, and it's well worth a read. I'll get James to pop that into the chat as well for you. So we're going to look through the columns together. So this first column, you can see what I was talking about just now. So Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat don't allow outlinks, links out to your website in the posts. So Instagram does in the stories section, but not in the main feed. And you can also see here that Reddit does sometimes. If you've ever tried to use Reddit to post back to your website, you've probably experienced this. It's really hard. Reddit will see basically everything you're posting as promotional. So there's a fine art to doing that. Okay, so the next column, we're going to mostly skip over. It's just showing you that most of them will allow you to have outlinks to your website in your bio. So that's great. Most of us are making use of that already. So this third column is the one I want you to really focus on. First of all, we're going to look at the exclusively platforms. So we can see that the algorithms on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat exclusively prioritize content that exists on their platform, so native content. Not a surprise, it's basically what we were talking about in the first column. But I want you to look at the yeses. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn prioritize native content. So that means if you include a link in your post, then the algorithm will see that post as less of a priority than a post that doesn't have a link in it. And then this fourth column shows us which platforms benefit from doing more posts that don't have links and are designed to just exist on the platform, not take people off to your website. Now, this can feel a bit shocking. I was a bit shocked when I saw it. Working in social media, a lot of the time you're relying on the platforms to drive your traffic, but we're going to look at what else you can do. Okay, so why don't social media algorithms like links? It's basically a one-word answer. Advertising. So the longer people stay on the platform, scrolling through the feed, the more ads they're going to see and the more revenue the platform makes. Now, if you're the person paying for the advertising, it's in their interests for people to be clicking through. Then they want people to be leaving the site because you're paying them money to do it and you're going to keep coming back and paying them more money. But if you're doing just organic social posting, it's not in their interest for you to be leaving. So they want to prioritize the content that exists on there. This is a bit more evidence from Hootsuite. So this is looking at the average engagement for different types of Facebook posts. So images, videos, links. We're just going to focus on the two on the right. So I'll zoom in. Okay. So we can see that a regular status post gets 0.13% of your total fans engaging, whereas on the left, the link post gets a really tiny 0.03%. So algorithms prioritize content that is getting good engagement. And if we create more content that's designed to keep people on the social media platform and get them to engage, then we're going to be seeing a boost from the algorithm, and people will be getting to see our content. Okay, so we're going to look at how you can achieve your digital objectives if links aren't your priority. And we're going to look at 3 different approaches. So first up, mix it up. So I know for a lot of you, as we were seeing earlier in the poll, you need to sell tickets. This is a main priority. So I'm not saying never use a link ever again in a social media post, but I want you to try and introduce a mixture of content. So try to ensure that for every link post you do say 2 or 3 or even more linkless posts. So images, plain text posts, videos, polls. You can do threads if you're on something like Twitter. Algorithms really love variety. And so having a mixture of mediums is going to give you a bump with the algorithm. So this example is from the Vagina Museum. Their Twitter is really good example of mixing up conversational posts with links. They create lots of zero link content, makes them a fun follow. Okay, your second option, and this is if you particularly need people to come to an event or show or exhibition, one way you can promote it without relying on a link-based strategy is by showing the audience what they'll see, rather than doing it as a kind of sell. So this example is Opera North, and they had a show called Orpheus, which merged opera with Indian classical music. So the show was streamed on YouTube, and they wanted to use TikTok to drive people to YouTube. So they did this series of videos, which are the filmed Orpheus performance, just little snippets. And this approach is a little bit like if you're in a supermarket and they're handing out a sample. So they're handing out a sample of cheese and you try it and you think, okay, I'm going to buy the whole thing. So they weren't pushing out the URL. They were saying to people, the link is in our bio, they would say on a couple of posts, but a lot of the time they left it to the audience to ask, and the audience were asking. The audience was saying, where can I see this? And they were responding. So then you've automatically got 2 engagements there. You're driving up all of your engagements. The more people ask and you're responding in a friendly way. And then the algorithm is going to see that and be like, oh, this is doing well. People are responding to it. So all of their videos for this series had 1 million views on TikTok. So I'll show you just this little snippet from TikTok. Okay, your third option is a bit more radical. The third option is to change your digital objectives. So if your digital objectives are all focused on referral traffic and link clicks, then you could look at changing them to focusing on what social media excels at. So things like engagement, building a relationship with your audience, growing your audience, just communicating with them more. So some better options for driving traffic might be, in that case, your email marketing or your SEO. And if you're looking to focus on engagement metrics, I'm just going to show you the ones you might want to consider. So you might want to look at the number of likes. This is a pretty good indicator that your content was well received. Your number of comments. This tells you a lot more info about what the audience thought. It can inspire new content for your social media channels and your website. And comments can also obviously indicate the audience aren't happy. That can happen. You can have kind of negative comments, so it's a good idea to monitor them. Shares is one of the gold star metrics. I always love shares. It's an example that people were so interested in what you'd done that they wanted to share it with their audience. It can, in the same way as comments, indicate that people are complaining. So you can have shares where it's like, have you seen this? So it's worth monitoring. But a high amount of shares is where your post goes viral. So if you ever have a viral post, it's basically judged on how many shares you're getting. Saves is the other gold star metric. So a save indicates that your post was so valuable to that person that they wanted to come back to it. So they basically bookmarked it for later. Now you can look at overall engagements. One way to do this is to just add up these different metrics, or you can pull it from the insights on the different platforms. We'll say if you do it that way, it's probably going to include video views and also photo enlargements. So when someone clicks on your photo. So just as a caveat, it can be a little bit less valuable to understand what's going on than looking at them individually. Okay, and the final note on your digital objectives. Organic social media is where conversations happen, not conversions. So if you've ever seen a marketing funnel like this one, then you'll probably know that social media activity sits at the top of the funnel around the awareness stage. It's good for getting people aware of your organisation and what you do. Organic social media isn't great at driving sales and conversions. Now, it's important to note, I'm talking about organic social media, so not paid. We'll come on to paid in a second. Organic social media is never going to be able to compete with, say, email marketing, which sits around the convert stage because it's later on in the funnel. It's later on in the person's journey. Most of the time with social media, you're talking to the audience for the first time, or if there's someone who follows you, you may be talking to them at an early stage in their journey with you. If you're doing paid advertising, completely different story, because if you're doing paid advertising, it's in the interest of the platforms to drive those conversions so that you spend more money. So with ads, completely focused on conversions, but with organic social media, the algorithms are focused on conversations. Okay, so next up, focusing on engagement can help to enhance your brand's reputation. So awareness raising and developing your reputation are areas where social media really shines. This example here is from the Oxford Museum of Natural History. And if you're on TikTok, you've probably seen this video. So what I'm going to do is to get you to watch the video and then answer a question for me. Okay, so my question to you is, what did you learn from this video? So it can be literally anything. What did you take away from watching this video? And I will have a look at the comments. So leave me a comment. It's a stuffed anteater, playing words, humour, yeah, fun. Yeah, the staff are fun, not stuffy. Yeah. He does look very cool. Engaging, humorous. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I learned. First off, if you didn't already know, there's an Oxford Museum of Natural History. This might be the first time we've come across them. Second, they have taxidermied specimens, including anteaters. Third, it looks like it's set in a quite prestigious looking building. It's probably got some great history. Despite the prestigious building, they've got this really fun, quirky sense of humour, feels welcoming. Number 5, they're interested in attracting young people because they're on TikTok. 6, they're interested in attracting older millennials and Gen Xers because of the choice of song. And 7, she's an anteater. So the museum are focused on attracting younger people. That's why they launched their TikTok in 2022. The video went viral. It's had over 1.5 million views. So now they're a medium-sized institute and they are reaching a huge audience that they couldn't actually house within their institute. They would never be able to actually visit all of them. So they're building their reputation globally without people needing to visit. So I want you to imagine a different approach. Imagine if they had posted just a link and the comment, maybe it would be something like, our life collection has 5 million specimens from the animal kingdom. Visit now. Which of the two is most likely to be driving awareness of the organisation, and which of the two is going to be reaching the biggest audience? Okay, so how can we show value if we can't track visits? Working on your brand awareness is a long-term strategy. You're not going to immediately see the results. It's a tortoise rather than a hare approach, but it can pay off in the long run. So brand lift isn't that easy a metric to directly link to what you're doing on social media to show a return on investment. I don't want that to necessarily put you off. There are some examples. So number one, if you've got budget, there are social media listening software and platforms for tracking brand sentiment. And these can show how often your brand is being mentioned online and the sentiment of the audience when they're talking about your brand. Now, if you don't have budget, don't panic. You can do a type of organic social listening, is one option. And the extent to which you can do this is much less than if you were having the paid for product. But one option would be if you use TweetDeck, which is a platform where you can use Twitter through TweetDeck, and it's currently still free. Then you can set up your columns. So you could have a column that has the name of your organisation as opposed to your handle. You can have a column with your acronym if you have one. You can have a column with a hashtag that you regularly use, and then you can use that to monitor how your brand awareness is going, how often you're being mentioned. It's not going to be as exact. You're not going to be able to say, we've had 465 comments about our brand since October, unless you go through and count them, which I wouldn't recommend. But it can show you the general sentiment. Okay, your next option, this one I'm a big fan of, you can focus on shares. So increasing these is a great way to increase your brand awareness because you're being shared to a wider audience. Another is to track your follower growth across platforms. That's another way to measure your brand awareness, and more people are going to follow you if you're putting out engaging content. Another way is to look at how many times your brand is being typed into Google, the number of direct visits. You can see this in analytics. If you don't know how to find this in analytics, then James, who started off the session, is our expert in that, and he's available to help. Now, people searching for your brand isn't necessarily going to be aligned to what you're doing on social media, but you can see the overall brand visibility growing over time the more you do in this area. Another is to track how many backlinks you're getting. Again, if you don't know how to do this, James is your go-to guy. You can look at whether you're getting an increase in PR and press interest, an increase in newsletter signups, and a literal increase in people coming in the door. Okay, so the number of people booking and visiting. It's all less tangible activity than referral traffic because it's difficult to tie to your social media posts. It's a little bit of a trust exercise. And so your window of monitoring needs to be really long. It's not a quick activity. One way of growing your brand awareness is to really lean into your niche. So I want you to think, what is your niche? What is your art form? That could be your niche. It could be the topics you're passionate about as an organisation. And you can build up your brand as experts in this area by leaning into your niche. So assume that the audience are passionate about the topic too. You can find a whole new audience on social media when you really showcase your niche. And it can be an audience from all around the world who are interested in the same topics. So this example is from Art UK. They're an art education charity. And in this video, they're showcasing their niche, which in this case is their art form. And they're really showing their specialist knowledge. They're exploring the topic of modern British art. In this is a series that they've done. And in particular, this one sculpture they're looking at. And it's a perfect example of assuming that everybody watching loves your niche and wants to learn more about it.
This sculpture is called Mute Waters, and it's by the artist Ralph Brown. It's interesting for many reasons, not least because it's part of a really important moment in the arts in 20th century Britain. The rebuilding that took place in the 1950s after the Second World War also had a social mission that access to high quality art should be part of the fabric of everyday life for everybody. A project to commission and site sculpture across the public spaces of the new town in Harlow and Essex was a prime example of this. Artists such as Barbara Hepworth and Henry Moore took part in the project, and Brown's contribution, Neat Porters, of which this is another cast, takes pride of place in the Market Square. It's based on many sketches the artist did of porters in Smithfield Meat Market hauling flesh. It's brutal and visceral, the flesh and sinew of the carcass matched in the muscles of the men hauling it. It's like a Rodin and its evocation of flesh and social realism, and was in fact one of the first 20th century sculptures to be listed by English Heritage.
Okay, your niche might not just be your art form, it could be your region. So Creative Folkestone, the example here, they feature art and artists in Folkestone. So here they're showing one of their pieces. It's a palette of 100 variants of the colours of the sea. Or your niche might be a specialist subject, like the Tank Museum, who speak to tank enthusiasts from around the world. They showcase their tanks, they have historical photos of tanks. So basically, I want you to think about what makes your organisation unique, what makes you special, what do people, if you have people come in, what do they flock to the moment they come in the door? So you're going to grow brand awareness the more you're on social media, engaging with others on your specialist subject. Okay, so how can we focus on engagement in order to make communication a two-way street with our audience? Do you ever think, I wish I could ask my audience about this. This is exactly what social media should be used for. It's a conduit to chatting with your audience, and I don't think enough of us will make the most of it, out of that. So you could use it to improve your services, ask for their opinion on your services and what they need, what would help them, what they're looking for. And this can help you to focus your efforts, things you want to try. It can also give you some very honest feedback. And the more you engage with others on social media, the more others are going to respond to you. So you can't just try it once and then be like, it's not working, I'm out, I'm not doing it anymore. If you go back to the party, if the megaphone guy dropped the megaphone and said, all right, ask me a question, people aren't likely to immediately go over and start asking. They need to be prepped a bit. You need to spend some time mingling in order for people to want to ask you questions. So in terms of your posts, if you decide, right, I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything, an AMA, and it's going to be on our specialist topic, people need to be prepared for you to be doing that. So you need to have spent some time laying the groundwork, showing that you're an expert in that topic, talking to them about it, answering questions on the topic already in order for them to have an appetite for it. And you can also just ask questions for fun to engage your audience and your interests. So this example is from the Museum of English Rural Life. And this got tons of engagement. Everybody wanted to talk to them about ducks. It was quite a fun little post for them to do. It got lots of engagement. So it's just something where you could do a nice little conversational post. It's a topic that's relevant to them, and it got people engaging. Okay, and embrace polls. Polls are a really, really great asset for a social media manager. You can ask questions on virtually any topic. You're going to have people participating. They're really handy on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can also use Instagram stories to ask polls. So the British Library do a really good job of this. Once a month, they do a monthly quiz on Twitter on different topics, and they use the polls as the interactive element. So it's like a gameplay element. They'll have a thread with all these different polls, and it's in their specialist topic. So they're really leaning into their niche and showing what they're interested in, speaking to others interested in the same. And it's a really nice way of using the platforms. Another thing is to listen to your audience and use their comments. So if your audience are asking questions, then you might be able to use those questions to create some new content, whether that's content for your website or on social media. Shakespeare North Playhouse created this whole kind of social media strategy of answering the audience's frequently asked questions with their content. So, for example, they had a couple of, I think it was a video and a response on Instagram about what happens if it rains, because some of their theatre is outside, as to whether rain stops the show. And this instance here, they're talking about the kind of seating available. So this example is a really innovative way to answer questions about accessibility as well. So I'll show you this. This is one of the later slides. Now, if you had any kind of concerns about what seating was available, they answer it with these slides without you having to reach out to them. So you can determine where you need to sit just by looking at these different posts on Instagram. One of the best features of TikTok is that you can create video responses to audience members' comments just by clicking reply and then video reply. And you can see it's a response because of that speech bubble up there that says, show us the final product. That's what someone's commented and they've done this video in response. So if someone asks a great question or makes a suggestion in your comments, then use it as an opportunity to make a new video or a new post. Use it as an idea for some kind of content. Because if someone's thought about it, then it's likely that other members of your audience have too. So in this example, this is Motion House. They're a dance and circus organisation. They've done some videos that were showing backstage how they got this dancer to float in the air. And this person's commented, show us the final product. So they've done a response video from the front so that you can see what it looks like to the audience. Okay, so finally, how can engagement help you to develop relationships with your audiences? So first up, you need to become a part of the community. So whether you're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whichever platform, you can tap into existing communities by following and interacting with others. So some great examples of this are hashtag BookTok on TikTok and hashtag Bookstagram on Instagram. Those are where the literary community, like two of the main areas where the literary community exists on those platforms. And you'll often find that communities use the same hashtags to interact with others who are passionate about the same thing. So those are the ones to follow, have a look at who's really active on it, make sure you're looking at what the kind of latest trends are and what's happening. It does mean stepping outside of your replies and commenting on other people's posts. I would recommend that you dedicate at least kind of half an hour a week to engaging with people. Even if it's only on the one platform, if you're like, this is the biggest platform, spend some time on there. It's going to really help to grow your audience. And then deepen your relationship with the audience by encouraging them to make content on the same topic as you, so with user-generated content. Now, user-generated content has always been a part of social media. For example, if you probably have in the past had it where you'd ask people to take a selfie of themselves. It was quite a big thing about 8 years ago, where if someone came into your organisation, you might say, take a selfie of yourself here and you could win something. The user-generated content still exists on social. One of the examples I showed you earlier of the Museum of English Rural Life asking people to show them ducks, that was a type of user-generated content. So this is a great way to get your audience engaging on the same topic as you. So TikTok takes user-generated content to the next level. They have options for you to stitch or duet with your content. Now, stitching is where you have the original bit of video from whoever's created it, and you add your video to it. So it could be at the beginning, it could be at the end. It's often used for things where someone will say, tell me about a time that you, and then someone will stitch it and answer the question. Duetting is where you have your original video playing and you have your video next to it, and they happen at the same time. So it's kind of like almost like live responding, but you're filming it. So this example is from London Philharmonic Orchestra, and they often invite their followers to duet with them. They will have the score running across the top so that musicians can play along. This is also a great example of them really kind of leaning into their niche. They're speaking directly to musicians. They're interested in classical music. They're assuming their audiences too. So that's just like we were talking about before. So I'll show you this one. Okay, so hopefully by this point, I've shown you why engagement is such a useful tactic and can have real benefits for your social media. And we will move over to the Q&A if James is around.
No, I've done a runner.
There he is.
That was brilliant. Thank you. So everybody, now's your chance. Stick some questions in the Q&A. And we've got lots of time now with Nicola, so we can spend hours and just make her answer lots of really, really tough questions. So please ask away.
Thank you, James.
But don't forget, if you're in England and you're a non-profit organisation or an individual in the cultural sector, you can have a free one-to-one with Nicola as well. So anything that we don't answer today, then please book in with Nicola, and then she can have a one-to-one with her. Wonderful. So I'm going to go through the questions. Please add them through Q&A, and we'll go through any additionals that go in there. So the first one is it's all about the algorithm from Kim. So how do you know what the most up-to-date algorithm is? How can we find that out? How do you find it out?
Okay, so it changes. The really tricky answer is it changes a lot, and it can be that some things that are working amazingly suddenly change. The way that I stay up to date with it is I follow lots of different social media experts and organisations, and keep track of what they're saying the latest changes are. So there are some groups that I'm in on Facebook, and people just talk about the latest changes. So for example, Instagram have done a real kind of 360 recently on video. So Instagram was mad about video. It was all about it because they wanted to compete with TikTok. And really recently, I've noticed other social media professionals saying all of a sudden my video content is through the floor, what's going on, and carousels are the thing that Instagram loves. I've noticed it with people that I'm working with. It's probably going to be something that changes, is the unfortunate answer, because these algorithms get updated all the time. It's just the same as with SEO. The algorithm will be updated and all of a sudden you're like, well, this used to work, and it's not anymore. So it's just something you have to try to stay on top of. There are some experts that I follow, like Matt Navarra, I believe his name is. I follow him on Twitter, and he does lots of news about what's changing with the different algorithms. So yeah, it's not a very helpful answer in that it changes. You can only do what you can do. And if you're finding that something is suddenly performing well, just keep trying more of it, keep testing what's working. Even if other people are saying it's not working for me, it can be that in your case, there's something different that's happening with the audience. It might be that your particular audience really like that kind of content.
Yeah, thank you. So I've got some more questions. So when you were talking about the algorithm and then different content and trying to the algorithm trying to keep you on the platforms, if you had a piece of content that didn't have any links on it, and then you put the link in the comments, would that affect the algorithm?
No, that's fine. You can put links in the comments. At the moment, that's a really kind of well-used tactic. Particularly on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter. People will do the first post, well, they may do a thread of posts on Twitter, and then at the end have the link. And on platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook, they'll do the post, whatever it might be, and then the link is in the comments. That's absolutely fine. At the moment, that's working absolutely fine. Like I say, it's one of those things where it could change because they change all the time. But right now, that's what I would recommend doing.
Brilliant. Thank you. And if you were leading up to doing an AMA, what do you recommend the journey would look like? How would you seed that with your audience?
So I would really recommend that you do some videos about whatever the AMA is going to be on. So for instance, if you were like a print company and you wanted to do an AMA on the printing process, then show it. Do some videos that show that process so that people can get a flavour for what's going on, and people are going to have more ideas about what they're going to be asking you about. Also, give it a long lead run up. say, if you've got any questions about this, come along at this time, and try to make it have a little bit of a buzz around when it's going to be, and be seen to be answering questions ahead of that as well. Like, don't save them all for the AMA. You can always answer them again during it, but just be seen as an authority on it, because you're talking to people about it a lot, and you're already responding and being this like helpful person within the sector.
Brilliant. Lovely. I've got a question, and there's one I can answer. So it's from Naomi. Is there a really good engagement analytic platform that sees across Facebook, Insta, and Twitter? And there are a few. Usually they're paid, and there are things like Sprout Social, Hootsuite, and Buffer, things like that. And we can put some of these in the resources as well, so you can have a look.
Yeah, there's some. I've got some that, because I've been asked this for kind of low cost ones, so I can dig that out. There are quite a lot of them actually offer a discount for if you're a non-profit, so that's quite nice as well. I think Hootsuite is one that has gone very expensive all of a sudden, so it might be one that people are looking to find a different one if you've got a really limited budget. But I can find some, and we can pop those into the email that goes around.
Thank you. There's lots more. Are you okay to carry on?
Yeah.
So this is one that you get quite a lot that I've seen, is that organizations come to you and go, we've got an event in a few days' time. How do we boost ticket sales? Any thoughts on that? Any hot tips?
The kind of unfortunate thing with sales is that realistically, you probably need to have a bit of budget on it, especially if it's that short a time frame. If you've got quite a long time frame, then you can sell them, over time with what you're doing. If it's that you've only got a few days, even if it's only like 50 quid that you're putting onto Facebook, it's a bit of a horrible truth about Facebook, is that really you need to be able to spend in order to get those conversions. I mean, you can do, like we saw with TikTok, you can do things where you're showing parts of the event, but it's not going to make as many sales as actually having a little bit of budget to spend would. If you're going to do some paid advertising, Facebook is a good platform for it. It's a bit of a funny platform for any kind of organic activity, because like we saw in those examples from Hootsuite, only 0.13% of your audience are seeing even a kind of plain text post. But if you're going to put money onto it, it's one that I often recommend, because it can be good for conversions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We've got another question from Naomi. She asked that sometimes we receive assets and copy from shows and events. And how can you use those to be more engaging if they're fixed assets that you're getting from a show to your organisation?
So one way of doing it that I've seen was, say for instance, there was a cinema I was working with, and they had these Christmas movies that were coming up, and they wanted to sell tickets to them. So instead of saying these Christmas movies are coming up, buy tickets, they said, what's your favourite Christmas movie? They had like the visuals of them so that people could see they were coming up, but that wasn't the point. The point was talking about what's your favourite Christmas movie. Another one I saw was a theatre where they had a pantomime, and they used one of those, those really random Facebook kind of games where it will have take your first initial and your last initial, and that's your name. And they did your Dame name. So they were promoting the show, but they weren't overtly promoting the show. They were kind of drawing people in to do this fun activity without it being buy tickets to this show. So you can get people aware that you're doing things without having to be explicit about buy these tickets. And you can do some that are buy these tickets, but it's just to make sure you've got a variety happening, like a variety of posts, so that it doesn't feel like it's all sales. It feels like there's some engagement, some things to talk about. Like with that, people always really like seeing things like the set being constructed. If you have even things like a party, like first night party, if you have photos from that, people really like seeing the characters outside of costume. So just to try to think creatively around the subjects that you can show that you have a show on without it being here's the show, buy the ticket.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great answer. I've got 3 questions about the same thing, which is all about, are hashtags still important?
Yeah, so there's one exception. I would say hashtags on Facebook are a little bit of a funny one at the moment. So originally they said they're pretty much useless. I was telling people they were useless, then they changed their mind and they weren't useless. So at the moment, hashtags on Facebook are a bit of a funny one because they're deprioritizing them in groups. So if you have a group instead of a page, you're not going to be able to really use hashtags to categorize anything anymore. If you're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn and TikTok, hashtags are still relevant. Instagram have said to cut down on the number and to go really for ones, I always recommend going for ones that aren't too generic. So if you're an art organisation, for instance, hashtag art is too generic. You're probably going to be seen, you know, by minimal people because there's going to be like 10 million rather hits for hashtag art. So try to think about your location is one, especially if you're a venue where you want people coming in the door, then could you have like, I don't know, hashtag what's on York, for instance. Have a think about your location overall, like it beyond your city to where people are likely to travel. Have a think about your specialism. So if you have something that you're really well known for, you could use that as a hashtag, and then have a look if there's any communities like we were talking about before, like Bookstagram. Even though it's a big one, it is one where everybody is very interested in the topic, so you're going to be speaking to people who are already passionate about that topic.
Thank you very much. So Geraldine asked that she's been working with a brand for the last 2 years, how to get people to visit the website when you're on Instagram and then make sales from that. And then a second question, which is related to that, is that do you recommend using something like link trees in the bios for platforms such as those?
I would very much recommend using link trees. Now, as I was saying, the likelihood is with Instagram that people are going to want to live, you know, stay on the platform and just look at the content on there. But if you can make it that it's engaging enough for people to get to know your brands, then they're more likely to click through. Linktree is a brilliant idea. So you put it in as the link in your bio, you set up a Linktree for free, and you can add as many links as you want onto it. And you can see in Linktree how many people have clicked on each of those links, which is really handy. So you could do that. You could use stories to drive more people to your website because you can link through from stories. So if you're doing some really nice content on your feed, people are more likely to follow, more likely to see your stories. You can always say link in bio on Instagram and kind of hope that people are going to click through on it. But I think the main thing is to make it so that you're an interesting platform to be following, an interesting organisation to be following, by bringing the kind of specialisms up front so that you're getting enough out of seeing the platform anyway that you actually want to engage with this organisation more. I know it's hard. I've worked in social media for a long time and I've never quite perfected it with an organisation where everyone is bringing you their specialisms. It's one where you need to keep kind of working at it with the team. So if you're a social media person and all of the specialism lives somewhere else, how can you get them to tell you more about their knowledge of history, for instance, if you're a museum and you've got these kind of specialists? And it might be they don't want to be in front of the camera, but they can still give you some really good ideas for behind the camera.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like engaging with your internal team is so important. I think there's been a lot of chat about that, about as a small team, how do you start to do all of those things as well as posting on these different channels and all of that?
Yeah, I think the main thing is prioritizing with that. So if you're finding that you're like, I don't have enough time to do this well across all of these different channels, have a look at whether you actually could prioritize a channel and do that channel really well and do the others to a lesser extent. So for instance, Facebook, while it's really good for advertising, it's probably not going to drive that much awareness because your posts aren't being seen by that big an organic audience. So it could be one where you kind of copy what you've done on your other platforms that's done well, put it on there so that you're keeping it maintained, but you're not spending a great deal of time on it, and then focus in on the ones where you're finding lots of engagement. It's better to be really good on like 1 or 2 platforms than to spread yourself across all of them and be kind of getting there. I always say, because I know that people in the arts are really stretched thin for time, especially. I always say, like, is there one you can drop and you could just update it every couple of weeks, or even just stop updating it if you're finding there's nothing happening on that platform? Because you don't have to be on every platform. There's no like law that says that you need to be on every platform. You can think, this one actually has the biggest audience that I'm interested in talking to, and this is the one I'm going to go for.
Brilliant. And that links into Deb's question, which is around content. Should you create unique content for every single platform, or can you utilize, can you reuse the same content? You can reuse the same content. So if in an ideal world, you would maybe create new content for every platform, but I mean, the likelihood is, unless you've got a big team, you're probably not going to be able to. So you can use the same content. I will say, if you're going to do something like you've got a TikTok that's doing really well and you want to use it on your other platforms, make sure you remove the watermark from it, which is the logo, the TikTok logo, where it has your name, your handle. There's software that you can just use basically to take that off. I've used one called Snaptic, but there's tons out there, and it removes it. The reason I say to do that is that platforms like Instagram deprioritize content that has the TikTok logo on it, so they know they're on it. I didn't know that. Interesting.
And I've really noticed, like, lately, you don't see the TikTok content as much on Instagram as you used to. It used to be a thing all the time, and it's because, they've deprioritized it. So just make sure that's removed, but then it's a perfect piece of content to use elsewhere. If you find that one does really well on a platform, it's always worth testing it on other platforms. And the other thing, which I like, when I first kind of started out my career, felt very uncomfortable about, is that you can reuse content. I was always like reinventing the wheel, being like, no, I can't reuse it. I need to come up with a new bit of content for the exact same topic. But you can reuse content. You can wait like 3 or 4 months and use the same post again. And if you feel weird about it, you can always caveat it with, like, I've seen, who was it I was looking at? It was the Vagina Museum again. They've joined Mastodon, and they are reposting popular threads from Twitter, and they are putting at the top repost of an old thread, and then they use the whole thread, and it's doing amazingly. And nobody has said, why are you reusing this? And I actually don't think they probably even needed to say that, because the content's really interesting, so people are engaging. Yeah, that's excellent. I learned those then. Do you have any advice for engaging with comments? Sometimes we just get compliments about an exhibition, and it seems that all we say is just thank you at the moment. Is there anything else we can do? It is really tricky. I think it's fine to be saying thank you to those. I think one thing you might want to consider with it is, with those people who are regularly commenting and giving compliments, is to try to build up a more personal relationship with them, because they're obviously interested and engaged already. So it might be that you comment on one of their posts, or if that feels really weird, then it might be that you say, like, glad you enjoyed it. We saw you came to this one. If you've got some real sort of diehard fans, you could keep a note of their name, so that you start to have this more of a kind of repertoire with them, because it's nice to be getting those comments. So it's always worth trying to keep those people kind of on your side. Yeah. Is there a problem of, by doing that, you then have to reply to everything? And then that's I mean, there is that if you've got a really limited amount of time. But it's the good thing with, if you're responding to comments on your own post, it counts towards your engagement. It's just going to grow your engagement for that post. So they're going to see, the algorithm is going to see it as a more popular post because it's getting more and more comments. So it depends on how important that post is to you, I guess. If it's like an exhibition or something, then maybe it's one that you really want to be pushing.
We're gonna do 2 more questions, okay? And then everybody, and I'll give you a break. You can lie down. So we've got a question from Grimm & Co, and this is like Grimm & Co's target audience is working with children, and forms such as TikTok technically have to be over 18 to be posting on those. And there are concerns about like safeguarding and things and the type of content they might see. Should they give it a go? Should they try TikTok as a channel?
I would say TikTok is probably your best shot with that audience. There's TikTok and Snapchat. I've yet to really be able to kind of nail using Snapchat with an audience, because I think it's one of those where you feel a little bit invasive when you're doing it, because most of the time it's young people talking to each other. Some brands do it well. It's a bit of a tricky one. I would say TikTok is probably your go-to. I know that there is stuff around the age limit. It's just changed as to how long you can spend online, but it is the most popular platform with a younger audience. So it's really about going to them where they are. Instagram, to an extent, you could also use, but it's mostly probably going to be TikTok. So I would invest a bit of energy into that. I have seen some brands where they have younger people, where they've kind of had like younger people ambassadors, and they've got them to create some of the content so that it feels like it's speaking more to the correct audience, which is a really nice way of doing it. So you feel a bit less like you know, the gif of Steve Buscemi with the skateboard. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Anyway, a bit less like that. Yeah, I would say
share it later on.
I'll show you that later.
Brilliant. Right, that's it. We ran out of time for any more questions. Thank you for everybody that's put the things in. We will share more resources. We will share a recording of this, and as we said, you can book in with Nicola. And over to you to do your last wrap up. Okay, so this is what we've covered off today. So we've looked at the difference between broadcasting and engagement, and how it can help you in these different areas, how the algorithm prefers it, how you can try to meet your digital objectives, build up your brand awareness, and speak to your audience more and deepen your relationship. As at the beginning of the session, this is the link to book in a session with me. I'd love to have a chat with you. If this today hasn't covered off what you're particularly interested in finding out about, then please do book in a session and we can go through that. I can also look at your social media accounts and give any kind of tips on what you might want to do. And come along to the Digital Culture Network website, come and have a look at the resources. We've got lots of new articles on there. I've got a new article on there actually about creating a content calendar. Send us an email, find us on Twitter, just get in touch basically. And that is it for me. So it was really nice to do my first webinar with you all, and hopefully I'll get to speak to a lot of you one-on-one over the next few weeks.